Plus, J.K. Rowling has called for a boycott of Marks and Sparks. She says as the retailer continues to allow trans-identifying men into women's changing rooms, and in particular the changing rooms in the lingerie section, even working there and offering to fit bras, then we should simply stop giving the store our money. I am 100% behind her on this. The author spoke out after it was revealed that M&S had apologised to her mother after a trans employee, 6'2" bloke, asked her teenage daughter if she needed any help in the bra section. Yeah, creepy much? Yeah, we'll talk about that later in the show with Helen Joyce. All of that coming up, plenty more besides. Joining me for all the chat, voice of reason, voice of sanity, even though she did work in the Tory government. But you know, we forgive and forget. It's Claire Pearsall, former Conservative government advisor in the Home Office. Good morning.
Morning.
Lovely to see you. Looking very sparkly and glamorous today, by the way.
Well, it's summertime and, you know, things aren't great, so we have to
try
make
and
up
you're
for
buoying
it.
things out. You're buoying things out. I like that. I like that. £50 billion black hole. Now, the Labour government came in saying, oh, we don't know what the finances are like, we don't know what we're going to have to do. But they did promise they wouldn't raise three key taxes. They said on working people, that was national insurance. They don't think employer national insurance practically counts. Income tax and VAT, although we all pay a lot more taxes than that, as we all know these days. But they said they wouldn't do that, but they also said they had fiscal rules, and Rachel Reeves was adamant about that. And then they went, oh, we've looked at the books, and you'll never guess what. There's this £22 billion black hole. They're still yapping on about it at PMQs and every Chancellor's questions. Now, it turns out, according to the National Institute of Economic and Social Research, they genuinely are a respected independent think tank. They know their tomatoes. And they say, actually, it's a £50 billion black hole, and her wafer-thin headroom of, you have to say wafer-thin, the wafer-thin headroom of £9.9 billion that Rachel Reeves pretended she has, so she can make all the numbers add up, is all being wiped out, and there's a budget deficit of 41.2 billion, so totals 50 billion quid. What should she do about it?
Not raise taxes on individuals. How about looking at what the Labour government are spending the money on? Because we've seen enormous pay rises for certain sectors of the public sector, train drivers, for example, nurses, doctors, anybody that demands a pay rise seems to have got one. But also look at things like overseas aid, look at things like net zero. That would bring down some of that £50 billion black hole. I wonder how many times she's going to mention that, because you can't blame all of that on the Tories.
Well, they really, really can't, can they? I mean, again, a lot of that is down to her own bungled last budget and those national insurance rises on employers that came in. And again, you said no, shouldn't raise taxes on individuals. But there's this idea that, well, businesses can just pay taxes. Businesses are made up of individuals.
Yes.
There's the employer, the employee, the director, the people who start the business. And again, there is an absolute lie that all these people are not paying tax. They are paying tax. They're paying tax on the director's remuneration. They're paying national insurance. A lot of them on PAYE as well. They are paying corporation tax. There's very someone who used to be on the the IR35 because as a freelancer you had no choice about that in my industry. That's it. That's the only basis on which you could be paid. You don't actually have a tax benefit from that anymore. So it's absolute nonsense. The only tax benefit is if you are an entrepreneur and then when you sell your business later on. But should we not be giving people incentives there? But the thing is, you tax businesses, you tax profits to that extent, people stop bothering making money. They don't hire new people, and those people, they're not employed, paying taxes, buying more goods, paying more VAT on them. It carries on. There is ample evidence that if you raise a whole load of taxes, you don't necessarily get more tax money in. The weird thing is, the sums of the black hole are so big now, the only way you could really fill it would be to put up the basic rate of income tax. If you look at the countries that have really good public services, around Western Europe, and their basic rate of income tax is way higher than ours. Way higher. It is just the norm. But I suppose there's that trade-off, but you know what, I can get an operation within 2 years. My kids' schools aren't bad. The roads aren't full of potholes. So people kind of accept that. But, they are actually also quite sluggish economies. They're not very entrepreneurial. The powerhouse juggernaut of Europe, Germany, is tanking. We're going to have higher growth in Germany. Imagine if Rachel Reeves can deliver higher growth than the German government. That tells you how bad they are. But there's loads of stuff we spend money on that we are just not getting anything back for. Net zero.
Yeah.
I mean, net zero is a massive drain on the country's resources. It costs us billions. I mean, all the DEI nonsense, cut that out. There's an awful lot of NGOs, non-governmental organisations, charities, who get huge amounts of government money. And I'm like, well, why? If they're either it's something that should be funded by the state. I don't understand why hospices should be charities. Hospices should surely be run by the state, but they get money. But they're paid for by taxpayers. But there's an awful lot of nonsense charities that do absolutely nothing of any use to say. Well, if someone thinks that's important, then someone can give their own hard-earned money to it rather than pledging my money to it. But as you mentioned, OBC DI, but the number one thing we have to talk about is welfare, isn't it? It's welfare. You cannot have millions of people of working age who are perfectly able-bodied and, frankly, in my view, able-minded as well, not working. Or working part-time. They talk about the working poor. Couple, 3 kids, council house, or we're paying their housing benefit and private accommodation. She's not working at all. He's working 2 days a week. Everyone goes, oh, they're the working poor. No, they're not. They're the sofa benefits poor is what they are. They need to be required, full stop, are required to work, or they will not have any food on the table.
And it's a really easy decision. Do you want your kids to have a roof over their head and food on the table? If the answer is yes, then you go out to work. I was a single parent for 9 years.
Yeah.
I didn't earn very much money at the time.
Did you sit on the sofa and say someone needs to pay for me?
No, I went back to work.
All the single parents I know
didn't earn very much money, but had a roof over our head, there was food on the table, my child had clothes and shoes. I didn't have very much, and it was really hard.
Well, you're not one of those really, really fat mums with arms like my thighs going into the. Well, no, look at her. She's fat. Who was found by the BBC in a food bank saying, "I have to miss meals to feed my child," and I'm thinking, I think you should miss a few meals if you don't mind me saying, lady. But I don't think you are starving in your home.
No, and you find ways of doing it. You look for bargains in supermarkets. You get the yellow stickered anybody that's been out shopping. You know, the yellow stickers reduced items, but you do it and you learn how to cook. I was fortunate. My mum had taught me how to cook some really basic meals.
Skills, yeah.
But I learned. There was the internet, marvellous resource. Looked up some recipes, actually got off my backside, learned how to cook, made a difference.
And of course, it's so much cheaper. There's lots of things again, but this all comes back down to, again, personal responsibility. That has a massive impact. But you know what the answer is going to be in the budget. It's going to be taxing businesses. There'll be some sneaky taxes like tax thresholds and things like that. There'll be a tiny little cut to make it look like they're doing something, but they're not cutting welfare. They're committed to net zero. They're committed to a lot of overseas aid as well. They're committed to these pay rises, public sector workers. These are all already baked in. And some of them are deserved, some not. But at the end of the day, they're not going to solve this without putting tax up. They're going to try and put it up on a lot of wealthy people and corporations, and they will simply head off overseas within the year, if not before the autumn, if that's what they think is happening. And then we're going to be in even bigger doo-doo. I think I can say that words I can't say on air than we are already, and we are in a downward spiral. Of higher taxes for everybody, which bring in lower tax receipts. I mean, one of the other things we're going to look at is trying to reform council tax. But again, they'll upset more people than they please.
Well, they certainly will. And I think that most people accept that there will be tax increases, but it isn't going to be this penny on the basic rate of income tax. But I think that moment has passed. If the Chancellor needs to make up the money, you're looking at more like 5 pence on the basic rate, which is an enormous increase for a lot of people. But that's where we're going. So you either look at how you reduce your spending, or you have to tax people more. But you can't lie
and that means
about
if you're a basic income earner, okay, you've got your personal threshold around 12 grand, but basically you're paying 20%, so 1/5 of all your earnings after that first 12 grand. So you're earning like 30, 40 grand. These are average incomes now. So 1/5 of that after 12 grand goes to the taxpayer, plus your national insurance as well. Let's remember that. We're looking at the equivalent of a quarter of it going to the taxman. These are, again, a lot of people just scraping by, just making ends meet right now. One extra bill puts them over. The car, you get a puncture, the car needs a new tyre or something. The finances are, these are the families who, why on earth have you managed to rip another pair of school trousers, parents? Because we can't afford a new. It's that level that a lot of people are living at right there, just at the very, very edge. Washing machine breaks down. is a financial disaster for lots of families.
Yeah,
and I don't think Rachel Reeves and others get that, because they've always had everything on the, well, they've all worked in the public sector all their lives. They don't understand how a lot of people live. I'd love to hear from you. I mean, what is the answer? We'll talk to economist Julia Jessup a bit later on this, but 0344 499 1000. What do you want the Chancellor to do? Should she raise taxes? Should she cut spending? She should just borrow more, which is equivalent to just raising taxes for people in the future. I would love to hear your thoughts. Let's also talk about this absurd one in, one out plan that is not. It's going to involve 17 in, one out. I mean, it's just abject nonsense anyway. But absolutely, the government insists there is not going to be a loophole, a human rights loophole, to avoid return to France. Absolute nonsense. Within the actual treaty, it's very, very, very clear that migrants will be ineligible for deportation if they have any outstanding human rights claims or other legal challenges ongoing, or claim they're under 18. So the moment they know they're on that list, they simply make a challenge of some sort, can't be deported. That'll be fighting through the courts. It'll be 2 years. Yeah, I'd be surprised if anyone goes, unless it's someone like we've had people go to Rwanda. We pay them $3,000. Plus British taxpayers are going to be paying their transport back to France, and the transport of the asylum seekers, supposedly legitimate because they know someone in Leicester, their transport over here. I mean, we've been taken for mugs again, haven't we?
Well, of course we have, but this is down to Keir Starmer and his great negotiating skills.
It's brilliant.
I mean, what a deal to come back with is that we pay for everything.
Yeah.
We take some people who the French claim will have an asylum right.
By the way, the
UK.
French don't want those people.
Exactly.
They're such legitimate asylum seekers, the French don't want them.
So we're getting them. Do we trust the French system to judge these people to be right for the United Kingdom?
I'm assuming that we get to vet them. I mean, I'm maybe being far too generous in this.
That's a big assumption, because I don't think that's written in either.
Yeah.
But listening to the Home Secretary out on the media round, she doesn't know when it's going to start. She doesn't know how many people. She doesn't know if it will continue. She's just hoping that it'll come soon.
I mean, we were discussing on the show yesterday, it's quite obvious that these people who do come will be bringing their entire family with them at the time. Obviously. And then their second cousin will have and then their brother-in-law. I mean, it's such a nonsense. And again, the reason why they're going to allow this to happen is they think, A, it's a sop to us idiots, will just fall for it. Go, well, they're dealing with it. B, they do not understand that. And I wrote a column for The Sun about this when this first came out. We don't want 1 in, 1 out. And again, it's certainly not 17 in, 1 out. 800 800 on average come a week, and we're going to get rid of 50, but get 50 back plus all their relatives. I don't see why anyone thinks that's a big deal, a good deal for us. It's like we want none in, all out. I mean, the stats in terms of the polling on immigration now, both legal and illegal, it's an absolute sea change in the last year in terms of people just like, really we're done now. The huge swathes of the population want an end to all net migration now, indeed all immigration entirely, saying, look, that's it, we're done now, we're closed, let's have a breather, and deportations of people who've come in recent years. And I'm with them.
It's interesting that the amount of people that I've spoken to, you always have immigration conversations with some people. You have a good Barney about it. And there are some people who I've never said a word about immigration to previously who are now really worried.
Yeah.
They've never bothered themselves with it before. It's never come up on their agenda. They would have dismissed
people like me as far-right bigots.
Absolutely. Yeah. And now they're saying, but why can't we get rid of these people? Why are there 25,000 coming across the channel?
Well,
these are too many.
These are people who probably watch the BBC and have just discovered, having seen these undercover BBC reporters paying 1,200 quid to a people smuggler. I tell you what, though, capitalism used to be $5,000 to get across the channel. Now it's just 1,200. Capitalism works, guys. That's the free market for you. Went into the wrong business. But undercover BBC reporters paid money to violent people smuggling gangs as part of an investigation, and they're being hailed like, oh, this amazing year-long investigation. I'm sorry, other media have been doing this for years, exposing this stuff.
Not paying out 900
I don't
quid
mind
in
if they
cash
say they
either.
had to pay it to confront them because they got their footage, and I mean they paid money to I mean, come on, the BBC pays money to Hamas ministers and their families for documentaries, for goodness sake. This is a lot less worth. But again, like, the BBC has finally discovered that A, this is happening, and B, that it might be a bad thing. Oh, thanks for catching up. You're about 5 years late, guys.
Did they offer up any solution to it? No, and I appreciate it's the BBC, so they are impartial. Yeah. So they can't offer up any solution. But, I mean, yes, there are media outlets that have highlighted this from time after time. There are people who have written in newspapers like yourself who have written columns on this for at least a decade.
I was writing about this stuff in the Sunday Express in the early 2000s. Early 2000s.
So longer than a decade.
Yeah, I mean, some of us have been right about everything all along. Just saying, wonderful to be married to. Can I just say, just before we go to a break, it's breaking news. Donald Trump's top negotiator, golf buddy, Steve Witkoff, has met with Vladimir Putin in Moscow. This is according to the Russian news agency Interfax. We don't know whether it's already taken place, if it's ongoing. It's the first time the pair have met since April. Of course, repeatedly, Putin has kept him waiting 8 hours and things like that. And, I mean, again, I wouldn't even wait. I mean, I'm sorry, if you're the representative of Donald Trump, you go in at the dot you've said you're going in, end of. Otherwise, you get back on your plane, in my view. But is this hopeful? We've got this deadline, this 50-day deadline, which was always outrageous from Donald Trump for a ceasefire from Putin to agree to that. That's been put down to 35 days, to 12 days, 10 days. Friday is the deadline. Yeah. We've got no expectation that Russia will do this. They want to take quite a few territories in the Donbass region before they even come to the table. But is it a good sign that they're actually speaking?
I think we always have to see these things as a good sign. What comes out of it, I'm not that hopeful.
Well, I mean, given that Witkoff, when he first started this, didn't even know whether Crimea was in the Donbass or not. It was a bit worrying. Basic geography might be useful.
Maybe somebody's got him a map so he could learn about it. But look, he is sitting there, he is talking. Putin isn't the most honourable gentleman when it comes to keeping agreements, which, funnily enough, Trump has now found out after thinking he was quite a good bloke.
The two sides of the same coin, those two, in that respect.
They are.
At least one of them is democratically elected.
We may well get some kind of movement. I don't think it'll be anything significant, and I don't think it'll be long lasting.
No, indeed. Again, if we do have sanctions on their secondary sanctions on their trading partners, frankly, India and China need to be punished. Yeah, especially India. You want to pretend to be, in the the Western world, then stop buying oil from Russia. And by the way, we should stop buying it from India. A lot of Europe is doing that as well, oil and gas.